Now, with this information I'm getting, I know last year I kind of reported that Munguia and Berlanga was going to be a choice for Canelo this year. We had about 99% of the fans saying that he was going to fight Benavidez in September of this year. And with that being said, it's not happening. I know a lot of people won't give me credit for saying that I picked Berlanga to be the guy who was going to fight in September last year. And that was a year ago I said that. Um, but that with that being said, you got to build a reputation up. And that's what it's basically been happening for me. I'm not in the loser seat right now, but with Chris Eubanks' name being thrown around, I definitely feel like he's going to be someone that Canelo is going to be looking towards next year for a huge fight. With I want to say around May, if they can't put anything together by the end of this year, I would say Eubanks could be a huge possibility for next year. He hasn't really had many talks of being included in any kind of fight with Canelo this year because Canelo was trying to fight 3 times this year. That's why Turkey Yellow Sheik was kind of mentioning the Crawford and Canelo thing. But I don't know, man. The fans are kind of confusing me right now because they didn't really ask for Munguia and Berlanga, but they're kind of satisfied with it. So I don't know what their feelings would be towards Chris Eubanks, but if I had to guess, I don't think they really care about who Canelo fights at this point because Chris Eubanks, Berlanga, Munguia doesn't really matter. None of those guys are really big names that sell pay-per-view fights on their own. And I keep hearing that a lot of people are saying that those guys need to sell pay-per-views on their own. As far as Crawford, he's not a big name, not really doing anything. So I know Munguia has a fight coming up in a couple of weeks. I'll say four weeks from today, September 20th. And it's not really a lot of buzz around his fight, which kind of shows that Canelo doesn't really have to fight a guy with a big name at this point or a guy who can sell a pay-per-view on his own unless fans want to find a reason for him not to fight anybody. Because Crawford, he's not an option, even though we had Charlo around the same time last year and people didn't have any kind of problem with it. So kind of confused on that whole situation. But I know that Chris Eubanks is a real option for Canelo next year. And I'm kind of leaning towards, well, actually, I am leaning towards Chris Eubanks being a fight that Canelo will take next year around, I would say, it would be around May, possibly. I haven't heard any other names included with Canelo at this point. If I do hear anything that makes sense or valid, I will kind of include that. But Chris Eubanks is a name in the UK that's pretty huge. He's a guy with legacy, sort of like a Chavez Jr. So this is something that I can see basically happening for him. Canelo would like to have another name on his resume. And Chris Eubanks' name is just as big as Munguia or Berlanga at this time, especially in the sport of boxing. He has a whole country behind him that's has huge support of him. And, the media is basically going to be able to promote that fight across the pond and in the United States very well. I think it'll be a very lucrative fight. I know people are worried about pay-per-view numbers these days, so I think with the buzz around that in the UK and over here, it can be a trifecta. It can work for Mexico, United States, and the UK, and that can build for a lot of things that Canelo is looking for. And I think that'll be a huge option for Chris Eubanks. He's definitely not turning around. He was negotiating with Canelo recently, and he could have possibly jumped in for the September fight, but like I said, Berlanga was already talked about. He was already an option a long time ago. So I definitely think Berlanga was going to get the fight regardless. Chris Eubanks was definitely not going to be the option. It was too late when he started talking about the fight because Terrence Crawford was talking about Chris Eubanks, I want to say in May or June, and a lot of fans had a problem with that fight. They didn't feel like it was a good fight. They didn't feel like Chris Eubanks was good enough to fight Terrence Crawford, which I don't understand. I'm kind of confused on why they don't think Chris Eubanks is good enough for Terrence Crawford, and for some reason they don't think Terrence Crawford's that good. So I thought that would have been a good fight. Two guys who really people don't feel like are big names at this time. But I think he'll be a big enough name for Canelo. I don't think that's been a problem. Canelo hasn't really been chasing big names lately. Um, I want to say Bivol wasn't really a big name before he fought him. He's a big name now because he beat Canelo, but a lot of people didn't give him much of a chance to win that fight. But they would consider him a big name because he beat Canelo. But Chris Eubanks, he's a bigger name at this time than what Bivol was before he beat Canelo. So the Canelo fight just gave Bivol an extra boost to help promote this Bitter Beer fight. And with him being the guy who defeated Canelo, it just adds a little steam to it. But I think Chris Eubanks is definitely going to be the option for May 2025 with Canelo. But that's all I got. Like and subscribe.